Well, my topic today in 30 minutes will be try to address three main issues. Of course, the key point is looking at the school feeding programs, and then from a perspective of emerging countries. I've been prepared this presentation for the last 2 weeks, and I deeply look at three countries: Brazil, Ghana, and Ecuador. I had been working on Ecuador last year as a consultant trying to readdress the program. And Ghana, there is a interesting literature about Ghana, and last week I was on a thesis defense of a scholar from Ghana. But at the end, I should cut off my empirical stuff about these two countries and just skip with some of the Brazilian cases, because in 30 minutes it's not possible to go much further. But I would like to also address, beyond of this issue of how is the school feeding program in Brazil, what is the short story and what are the outcomes and how it works actually. I would like to also add two other points. I will start with them. First is how to address the discussion on school feeding programs in more comprehensive discussions of food, and particularly food policy. I think this is, I have been working on that, and I try to make a synthesis of the literature, what is available. I try to put it here, and I will put it out, and then relate this discussion about the case of Brazil, because I think this connects the issues of health, nutrition, and agriculture. Actually, just to mention, Corina, I would like to also highlight that just yesterday is coming out, at least to me, the new World Nutrition Report, and greetings for your leadership on this report. Very important work. And the second point I would like to talk about is a little bit try to organize, to put in different boxes the perspectives, the narratives that are addressing school feeding, because there is a huge amount of literature, and most of them, of this literature, is not clear in terms of what is really behind it, what are the approaches, what are the perspectives. So I would like to put some lights on that topics. So I will just start on that issues. What are the meanings and the scope of school feeding programs that we have available? So why then school feeding programs really make sense? For what reason is there an interest on these issues? I think there are several points we can highlight. I try to summarize them in 4. Of course, the first one is for nutrition and health issues, because school feeding programs are still very important as drivers to overcome hunger and undernourishment and malnutrition. This is the main reason, but I think slowly is going to other fields. And the second one is related to social protection. And social protection has to do with poverty reduction and social welfare. It's not just an issue to reduce poverty, but how you deal with that. So school feeding program is understood, especially in countries, in underdeveloping countries or emerging countries, has a device to tackle poverty and to contribute to social justice and to promote wealth distribution. As you will see, this was one of the drivers of the Brazilian program. The school feeding program in Brazil improves and helps this issue of social protection. And because of this, in Brazil, as I will explain later, is a strong partnership between the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of Education and Health. I think this is quite interesting in terms of the governance that is behind of these programs. But also, more recently, school feeding programs have been set and addressed in the box of the local and sustainable development. I think this is quite a new point, a new topic that has been received a lot of discussions. And this also is a new entry point to look at these issues from the point of view of the policies. It's not just an issue to overcome health or nutrition issues or poverty, but it's also now a tool, a device to foster local or sustainable development, especially, and this is quite new in the literature and quite new in the policies that had been setting in different countries, the connection between social inclusion and the relation between farmers. I would say that if there is one key connection between nutrition, health, and agriculture, this is in the field of small scale, of smallholders, and how to integrate them in a dynamic way for discussing new ways of social inclusion. And this, I would say, maybe these three entry points are more related to emerging economies, developing countries. In the last 10 or 15 years, you can also see an interesting literature rising up in developed countries, focusing or indicating that school feeding programs could also be important to readdress the urban politics. So this is something interesting. For instance, for a sociologist or social scientist as me from an emerging country or a developing country, look at why some European countries or even North American, United States, for instance, are more and more interested to use school feeding programs as to think about new initiatives in terms of developed alternative food system or to readdress the whole food system. So that's the point. There is discussion about, there's a lot of critics about the conventional food system or the food system as it is in terms of his shortcomings, in terms of his limits or barriers, and an alternative food system is trying to building up from the ground, from different starting points, and this has been seen as school feeding programs, or more broadly speaking, not just school feeding programs, but public procurement, because school feeding is part of public procurement of the public plate, could be part of this new strategy to readdress the way as cities are planning food issues. So this is quite interesting. That is quite important, and this I can see in the debates, in the literature. Some people even here in this center are making theses, are making research on that, and they are looking at this perspective. So I just would like to highlight some of the data. Why then school feeding is that so important? I would say, I put it in red, that there is an open public health matter, and this matter is related to the size of the demand side, because we are talking about at least, this is the last information of the World Food Program report, at least we are talking about 368 million primary and secondary school children. The biggest countries, the biggest programs are here. You can see India is one of the big ones. India is 1.35 million inhabitants, but if we look here, there probably are quite some people left and are not covered yet by school feeding programs. In our country, Brazil, I can tell you, because I know the data more precisely, that we are covering almost every children that are going to school that demand food, because this 47 million people means one fourth of our whole inhabitants. Brazil have 206 million people. So even in United States and China, we can see that is very important. But I think the second reason that I raised in terms how school feeding programs fits with development issues is related to the budget. What we are talking about is not just a few bucks is a huge amount of money, and there is no final and confident statistics available, because the data of the World Food Program says that the investment available, the annual investment, it goes from between 47 to 75 billion. Well, in between that, there are some billions of dollars that are, well, in some place. I think we have to look at this more precisely in terms to have better knowledge about that. So what we already know about school feeding, if these are the entry points, if this is let's say the big picture, I would like to summarize in one slide what I could review and what is my knowledge about school feeding programs, and how this is a point that addresses the issue of the public procurement system as a whole, in terms of what what is already known about, in terms of the evolving approaches on school feeding programs. Of course, I always do this as a teacher, because students like, you know, if you summarize in different periods. But of course, there could be some slight differences in time. But this specifically periodization I took from this report of the Global Panel for Agriculture and Food System for Nutrition. They said clearly there was a time before the 70s. If you look here, the next, here is more or less, this is in the report of the World Food Program, or is not the, I think is 56 countries is an overview about the timetable where this program starts. So we can see here that United Kingdom and Uruguay more or less start, were kind of early birds, and then we have most of them in some groups in the 60s, and then more recently there are a couple of more countries that start programs from the 90s onwards. So because of this, I more or less try to fit them in this periodization. And in this periodization, the first period was strongly focused on nutrition for education. And this is still the focus. For instance, I work for Ecuador, and in this country, for instance, and a lot of other countries, school feeding is still focusing to try to overcome issues to better nourish children in school age, in order to improve their school performance. That was a belief that if you feed better, if you give meals for school children, they would have a better performance in school. But at the end, there was a lot of assessments internationally, and most of them said it's not possible to really prove a cause-effect relation if you give food in the school, if this really improves the school performance in terms of better quality of schooling. Why? Because you cannot prove that children eat just in the school. So how to isolate this variable from where people eat and know. So, but anyway, and this time, school feeding programs around the world, and this is still like that in some countries, especially in Africa, school feeding programs were a very fertile field for food aid, especially from the United States under the PL 480 strategy. Well, the second period then is from the middle of, well, the beginning of the 90s, as you saw in the next figure, and let's say in the last to 2010. During this time, during these 15 years, the focus, the approach to school feeding changed a lot, and goes from the focus on nutrition for education or food aid to better quality of foodstuffs, to increase and to discuss how to connect schools to local production. This is nowadays the approach of World Food Program through the homegrown school feeding projects. And there are other countries also dealing with that. This is the focus of Brazil, for instance. And well, as I said, there was very important when the countries realize that they are expending millions and millions of dollars of money in the public plate. So this budget could be used to purchase food from the farmers and could be used to foster different kinds of development. So there is an ongoing process to change, to shift from looking at better price to better value, to best value, to buy better quality food, not just the cheaper food. And then, for instance, initiatives in the United States that is quite strong there, discussions on farm to fork. As I told you, is not just related to food to the schools, but this is a kind of institutional market. That is a market that is already there, because children are going to the school, they have to eat, a meal have to be served to them. So, and schools have to buy the food from somewhere. The question is always, why not to buy from our own farms? And then comes the second question, why not to buy from the region or local farmers? This brings on the table a lot of discussion. Is this really possible? What are the hindrances? What are the enablers to this? Recently, very recently, there are, I think, and I would say we are in this moment trying to push this focus in school feeding programs, but also more broadly in public procurement as a whole, in the direction to rethink school feeding programs in the perspective of the nexus between food, public health, and sustainable development. And here in this room, there is one of the characters very important in this perspective, that is Professor Tim Lang. And this is why I'm here, because I think his book on food policies and what other people are doing in terms of discussing how to produce, how to connect food, public health, and sustainable development. This is key in terms of how to readdress the place of the food in our economies. I think one of the leaders in this perspective is a country, Denmark. Denmark is trying to greening their old public plate. Other countries too, for instance, Brazil, with the law of 30%, is trying to do his best, but there are other initiatives, and some other countries. Here emerge, and this is where we are nowadays. These are our questions, the big issues about governance and social accountability. How to really think to make work these policies in terms of the place where they are addressed. And then a lot of issues are emerging. And I think here we have a very interesting field of studies, especially in sociology, but not just in sociology, also in other fields of studies in the social sciences, to look at how to make policies from the ground, from the grassroots, in terms to use the public budget for that. So this I already showed you. So what are the main theoretical and political frameworks? This is my second point. Then I will go to my case study, that is Brazil, and trying to look at what is Brazil doing in terms to collaborate, to contribute in this different perspectives. To try to summarize, I will put it in 4 points. The first one, and this is one of the discussions that I just started with Corina, and I hope we really have time in the next couple of years we can work together to go further in this, especially in one of that perspectives I think is the third or the fourth. We have one theoretical perspective that is school feeding programs as part of a food policy strategy. And then here the key actor is the state. The state is, For instance, in my country, this is the case of Brazil, for instance, and not just Brazil, other countries. The point is here, food is not just about nutrition. Food is about culture, food is about health, food is public health, and if it's a public health issue, then goes beyond of individual choices. I like very much a paper of Kevin Morgan addressing the three mites, like he called three mites from the neoliberal perspective, in trying to look at a state-based, state-focusing policies. But actually it's not just a state-driven approach, it's a state-society approach. And I think this is quite new in terms of the perspective towards an ecological public health perspective. If someone are knowledgeable of the literature, you will know who are the authors here. There is a second one. There is the discussion of food security and food sovereignty, especially international social movements like Via Campesina, people like the former rapporteur of the food security in the United Nations, Olivier de Schutter, is one of the people that is focusing on that, and a lot of other groups, where their starting point is not the state. The starting point is the global food system. Most of these people are using the approach of the food regimes in terms to discussing the third food regimes, if there is a third food regime or not. I don't know if you are familiar with that. Looking at the limits or the shortcomings of this system, and trying to say that the localization, the relocalization, and the food for people and not for profit, that would be the solution. So this is out of the framework of the market in terms to make this policy. Of course, well, this is one of my critics of this kind of perspective. Who will do that? So because I think we can maybe make questions about who will really arrange these policies between the producers and the consumers. Who will connect them? But this is the point. A lot of movements, social movements, focusing on agroecology, organic agriculture, and alternatives are working with this framework. Third, and I think here is, there are other colleagues. For instance, there is a perspective from some international think tankers. They are focusing on, well, if there is a big budget, if we have still problems with poverty, and we have problems of undernutrition around the world, why not to look at win-win solutions? And this win-win solutions means that school feeding program and public procurement has a general field could be potentially connect local producers, local farmers to local consumers. And the tool and the way to do this is by the food chains. So food chains, especially in homegrown perspective and other approaches, understand it has the way to do this, to make it possible to connect small-scale farmers, or not just small-scale farmers. There is an interesting paper from someone from the IGS that is strongly criticizing the idea that we have to just look for small-scale farms. The thesis that I was just last week, make a comment on the discussion of Ghana, was exactly that. The guy who defends the thesis says that, well, at the end, the Ghanaian school feeding program was not working that was expected, because the food chains that was expected to build up from the national government through the devolution, through the decentralization process, stopped when some middlemen actually take over from the program and manipulate them in the way that they want. So at the end, the money was going to the hand of the same guys, and the program become business as usual. Finally, there is a final perspective. This is, I think, I'm working in this, and this will be my comment on markets, Corina, just this comment. I'm working on school feeding programs since now almost 10 years, and we are trying to develop in perspective with other people, focusing on school feeding, and not just school feeding, but other public procurement programs, has a field to develop new markets. So our focus is not on the state, is not on the food change, and is not on the social movements. But our discussion is how these new markets are building up from the point of view to of the short food supply chains. And then through this, there is a discussion ongoing about relocalization of food, and also the issue of the cities and how the urban scape comes in these debates. I will stop here. I have some articles about that if someone of you are interested on that. So now I'm going to the point. I think I have more 10 minutes. That is okay? Yeah? Yeah, 10 minutes for each of my 3 points. Of course, I have much more stuff here than in the other ones. But anyway, to talk to Brazil, it's a little bit easier than about general discussions. So, well, the Brazilian case. I would like to quickly indicate that we cannot understand the Brazilian case without understanding the changes in our society in the last 30 years, especially since the redemocratization process starts in 1984, and especially in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. Because this introduced really a new relation between state society in our country. And this relation, we can summarize them between 3 phases. I wrote an article calling this the 3 generation of policies that we had in our society. Because we start in the 80s, especially in the 80s, when the end of the dictatorship, especially on a point where the society, especially civil society, were kind of opposition against the state. All the struggles, and this is my generation, we always complain, we always fight, we always struggle against the state, because the state was the dictatorship. That was our time. So social protest and social struggle focusing the state. So we move from this time during the 80s to the 90s to a new era, to a new moment. Especially in the end of the 80s, 1988 was an important moment when we start to have in Brazil a kind of, well, people sit on the table and start to talk. A process of redemocratization is not that easy. It's not that easy because it's produced a lot of damage in a society. And I don't know if the word is okay, is right, but we call this the propositional area. Social movement stops to just fight, to complain, and start to be more, to make proposals, make suggestions. And the state start to be too much authoritarian and start to say, hey guys, come on, let's sit and let's discuss. So Brazil started during the 90s an interesting process, and even the World Bank give room to that discussion on social capital, social participation, accountability, and this was really important for for the policies. And I'm saying in this article that we are in a new phase since the 2000, especially in the middle of 2000 onwards, that our policy-making process is a kind of co-governance policy between state and civil society. And there are a couple of policies, and the school feeding is an interesting policy that changes were made because of the interrelation, because of the interconnection, because the open discussion between the state and society. And I will show you the case of the National Council of the Food Security, where one of the most interesting changes in our school feeding program were set down, were discussed, and were implemented. Especially one of them that is quite well known internationally is the law of the 30%. So this was one of the outcomes of these discussions and interconnection between state and civil society actors. So we're setting then an agenda in Brazil, and I think in that sense we were quite unique. We really make some distinctions in terms of what's going on, because we were able to set in an agenda or a perspective on development that tried to put together food security approach and rural development. Food security was the issue of poverty, was the issue of hunger, and rural development was the issue of, well, we have thousands of small-scale farmers, and even a lot of people fighting for land. The landless movement is the strongest movement, social movement that we have in our country, and is one of the strongest in Latin America. And the landless movement always claim land, but not just land, or claim also the economic integration, and school feeding programs and food policies were one of that ways that it happened in our country. But we also implement a set of policies that are quite interesting of social redistributive policies, especially fighting against hunger and the policies of direct cash payments with conditionality was one of these policies. All these policies were put under the umbrella of the so-called zero hunger program. Well, I have to say that it was not just everything working so precisely, so has a system. There are difficulties, but at the end there was the umbrella of the Zero Hunger program, a set of 25 policies and 40 programs that try to integrate. That was the point, try to integrate people from the food security, for instance, bishops and priests from the Catholic Church that always complain and denounce the poverty, the poor people, and people from the landless movement or people from the trade unions, from the representatives of the family farms. So this is not ordinary that these people sit on the same table and start to talk. There must be something. And this was possible, and I think this was really interesting what happened in Brazil in the last 20 years. And this explains more or less our policies. I will just show you some figures. My point is always, when I saw this morning or yesterday the World Nutrition Report, there is a panel, is the word, it was wrote for someone from Canada, Cecilia Rocha. It's interesting, it's nice, but what I would like to say and would like to highlight is that if you want to understand why Brazil was able to reduce poverty and food insecurity, you cannot just look at food or nutrition. You have to understand a little bit the bigger picture, and this is related with social policies and is related to rural development policies. This is a kind of triple pillar policies, and here you can see a lot of people, they have no revenues, they have no earnings. They were contemplated with the direct cash payment transfer policies. And this grew up very, very steadily from 2003 to 2014 is the last data I have. It means 40,000 million of people earning about $70 or $80 per month, and the conditionality is to put the children in the school. So this was interesting because you get paid, and the money goes for the woman, not the man, for the woman, the head of the family, and the control is made by the attendance to the school. So then you have the children in the school. So the second point is feed them, give them food in the plate, and this was made by the policy of the school feeding program. So in that way, you can clash, you can marry it, you can marry the policies of the social policies and the food policies. This is a program that was important because we had no enough food in our from the family farms. So there was also a support for credit for family farms. This is the PRONAF, the National Program to Strengthening Family Farming. You can see, well, the blue columns is the agribusiness agriculture. You can see that this is just a small part of what is agribusiness. So this is a contradiction. Yes, it is. But that was possible in terms to the coexistence of these two models. Well, most of time people ask me, what is a family farmer in Brazil? Here is a figure. I will not stop here. I will jump this. Maybe in the debate someone will ask me, then I already prepare it because it's easy to explain and people like to know that. What are the outcomes of this? If you look here, the indicators in terms of food security was that people become in 10 years far more food secure than they were in the past. So we go from 65% in food security to 77%, and food insecurity goes down, slowed down from 70% to 3.23%. And also we had a reduction in the poverty. So this was possible because we were able to build a national food system. And the national food system, and this is the point of the National Council of Food Security, sorry, it's not that good. I copied this from a report from the Ministry of Social Development. This is the structure. The president from the National Council is always from the civil society, and the general secretary is always from the government. And then they have different chambers, and they have a national plenary. And they make the decisions. And this same structure is also in the regional states and is also in the municipalities. So it's a quite interesting and heavy structure in terms to run a policy that starts from the local, from the municipality, goes to the regional and to the national government. And it's also expensive, I have to say. So sorry, it's in Portuguese, but it's just to say to show you the three levels: the National Conference, the National Council, the chambers, the different chambers, technical chambers to different topics, and then the national. From these chambers, this discussion, these chambers, the outcome should be a national plan of food security and nutrition. And this is all, and these are, well, they start in the local level, in the municipality level, then goes to the regional level, and then goes to the national level. So this is more or less the system, how it works, and these plans are for short time and for middle time. This is really not good. This is in English. Then you can understand how it works. Well, there is a nice report from Renato Maluffi. It's in English. It's available. I can give you access, so you can see here how is the structure of the National Council. This National Council is really, really important and plays a key role in terms to put together civil society, state, and plan to execute to the execution of the policies, and especially the food policies. Yeah, Corina. So, just to show some figures and to show, that's my point. I would like to put the national school feeding program in this bigger umbrella. I will not say, and this is sometimes the case in some articles and some reports that are saying, well, Brazil has a blueprint. Brazil find out the secret, and all the problems are sorted out with the Brazilian model. And sometimes I see also people coming from Africa countries going to Brazil and say, oh, we want to copy the Brazilian model to implement in our country. And I always say, take easy. It's not work like that. Because the food policies, the school feeding program that we have is embedded in a little bit more complicated social, political, and institutional structure. And that's my point. I will just discuss a little bit. Well, we have other policies. I will jump this. The national policy of purchase of food, the national policies for on-farm food production. I will just focus here to save the time on the Brazilian school feeding program. This is the way how it works. The program works in a very decentralized way. The national Fund for Development of Education have the money from the national budget, and this money goes for the regional states and goes for the municipalities. Why? Most of the money that goes to the states, to the regional states, again goes to the municipalities. Why? Because some states decide to implement policies and some no. Because in Brazil, public schools are, municipalities have to cover primary school, regional states have to cover, I can say the intermediate level, and national level is for universities. But not always work like that. There are even some municipalities like São Paulo, like London too, they have their own universities. So it is a kind of mix, but mostly works like that. So the money goes to the school, and this is something interesting, because the schools and the municipality, they get the money. They don't get by the foodstuffs. Most of the corruption happens between the run from the money from the national level to the local level. But this is the case of Brazil. There are other models. I will not talk about that now. They are available. See, here are the 10 steps about how the system works. So start with budget and menu, pricing, public call, proposal, and then receiving proposal is a tendering process. Municipalities have to follow this process. They have to open a call following the public procurement, the public procurement call, and then they select the farmers, and then they can buy the food for the municipalities. So this is generally speaking how the policy works. One of the most interesting changes in this policy was the introduction of a change in the law of the school feeding program that make an obligation for the municipalities to buy at least 30% of foodstuff directly from family farming or rural family enterprises. This again was discussed in the National Council and then was approved in the Parliament, this law. Of course, this is the law 9714, but there is a national public procurement. There is always a contradiction between the public procurement and this law of the 30%, and is not possible just to buy food from farmers, but also from fisheries or indigenous people or traditional communities. So what are the outcomes? So then I go to the public plate. What is the budget? I have data from 2003 to 2013 to show you a series, but I have also data that we just finished an article looking at the last data from last year. So here you can see that the amount of money in reais, and here is in dollars. So this is $2.1 billion that in pounds was about the currency 590 million pounds. This is quite a sum of money, I would say. Here I have the most up-to-date figure. This is an article that we are translating to publish in a book that David Barling is organizing. We just finished this. We have 5,650 municipalities in Brazil, and from them you can see here the evolution. 2011, these are data from the National Fund of Education. They have this data available. We go from 59% to 77% just in 4 years. So that's interesting, that municipalities that are buying from family farms. Generally speaking, how much of them are buying and they accomplish the law of 30%? We go from 27% to 40%. So this is a slowing effort to go to accomplish the law, to go to this law. What it means in terms of money, we have all the estimations. In 2011, it means 10% of the whole budget of the national school feeding program, and it's double in 2014 to 23.26%. What this means in pounds, I make the calculation this morning. Well, the budget in 2014 was 3.8 billion reais. 30% means 1.14 billion reais. So the currency pound real is 5.3 pounds for each. Well, 1 pound you can get 5.3 reais, or 3.5 reais per $1. This is June 2016. Well, the budget, 30% from this means 700 million. This is the money available to buy million pounds from family farms. We already used 210 million. That is the amount that we are. 23.26% means 5.1 million pounds just from family farming. If we buy all food from the family farms, then the amount would be 210 million pounds. So this makes a huge market. That's the point here. There is a huge market available for the municipalities. So we can work on that. I have data from São Paulo and other countries. So this is more or less the distribution in all over the country. This is a report. This was an assessment by the IPCC. This is new data. Also, just one of our students, a master student, she make a master thesis trying to put on map, in looking at all municipalities, how the policy of school feeding is working in terms of how much percent every municipality are buying. You can see the interesting here, Amazonia, the north and the center of the country, and even parts of the northeast are buying less than 30%. If you come more to the southeast and the south, I live here, you can see that more municipalities are more blue, strong blue. And there are even some municipalities that are buying more than 100%. What it means more than 100%? You buy the total amount that you get from the national fund, and the municipality puts more money. So then you have more than 100%, because the municipality is also putting from their own budget in the school feeding program. So this is the very recent data. So what we are purchasing, what are the products? Fruits, greenery, cereals, dairy products. These are the. So this address the point about the dietary issue, about the nutrition. This is the connection between the public plate and the nutrition point. What about per child? Well, this is really surprising. If we look how much money is spent per every head, per every child, is very, very few. Is cents of pound. How we get this data? Well, this is interesting because our policy is that the national government gives money from every child that is recorded in the schools. But this doesn't mean that every child eats in the school. This is absolutely different from the case in Ecuador, for instance, where I was working, because in Ecuador every child don't get the money, but they get the food. Then in that case is a bar, a cereal bar. Wow, a lot of food that these children get, they get waste, because some of children don't want to eat it in the school. Why is that? Because eating in the school is still a stigma. Because if you eat in school, that means that your family had no enough money to provide you food at home. And this is a psychological issue that also have to be addressed when we go to study what is the meaning of policies for this kind of public. So this is more or less how it works. So these are some figures. I'm finishing, Corina. We are also using the public procurement system to buy food for the universities. This is my university. I'm very proud of that. My university just make a tendering process to buy 4.6 million reais for the next, from today to 2017 to buy food from family farms. My fight is that the food should come from organic farm. That's another story. There's not yet reach, but hopefully it will someday. This is the case of São Paulo. São Paulo celebrate the achievement of to achieve 27% of food coming from family farms. And for São Paulo, they have a huge amount, they have a huge budget. The budget is 7.1 millions, and 50% of that come from the national government. And the total expenditure on food was $287 million. This is quite an amount of money from a municipality from São Paulo. In this article that we make, we find a kind of paradox in looking at the whole municipality. Big municipalities that have more than 1 million pupils in schools, they are buying less from family farming than small-scale municipalities. So why is that? There is an issue of logistics. There is an issue of governance and how to address this issue. And we came up with a discussion of in cases of Brazil, countries like Brazil, we cannot have actually a food policy, a school feeding program that focus on local food. Why is that? Because a country with so different biomes and with so different foods coming from different regions, if we put that schools can just buy food from local farmers, then people from the north will never eat an apple because we can just produce apple in Rio Grande do Sul. So this is one point that we have to address, we have to discuss how much local we can go when we talk about this schooling. So the point is there is no relief for corruption. São Paulo just was an outbreak of a serious case of fraud and corruption in São Paulo. A small cooperative was used to make money for some politicians. So I'm not saying that the program is the 7 marvelous of the world. No, there is still some problems. We have to work seriously on that. So what we can learn. So this is the figure of the slowing down of poverty. I think this is an interesting figure because when we just look on that, some people said, and especially people from the left in Brazil, they like to say, oh, Lula's policies of direct cash payments were responsible to slowing down the poverty rates in Brazil. It's not true. It's not true. It's a set of policies that is related to that. It's not just family scholarship related to that. There are a lot of other policies. So my final thoughts, and with that, with them I will finish. 4 points. Food policies, and then taking into account the case of Brazil and my general comments, cannot be disconnected for a more comprehensive development strategy. It's not possible just to pick the school feeding program alone and try to change the whole problems of food policy in a certain case. This we can learn with Brazil, and especially looking at the devolution process that was going on since the end of the 80s. Second point, social actors, civil society, play a key role in setting the strategy. So the state alone, even the state is not the second best, but the state cannot do the job alone. The Catholic Church, in the case of Brazil, as well as social movements, were key actors. Civil society must take part of the process in the national, the regional, and local level, especially through the councils. The councils play a very, very important role in that, in our case. The Brazilian state included the food policy in a wider policy which fosters rural development and food security. Well, this is more or less the same thought that was the first one. And finally, what about the future? Every one of you probably know about the big turmoil that we are facing in our country. Well, I would say there are greater concerns about what will happen. I myself, I don't know what really will happen. I don't know what kind of country I will meet when I go back in next 14 July. I'm surprised. I was not expecting that. I regret for some ways, from some tracks that have been taken, but anyway. But I believe on the institutionalization of the process. I cannot see threats, I cannot see limits in terms to remove absolutely, completely what was built up in the last years, especially in terms of the councils. And maybe I would say, hopefully, that this is part of the construction of a democracy. And I thank you for your attention.
Thanks very much for your talk, Sergio. I suppose my question was how the school food programme, what's its sort of specific objective within the broader policy? Is it still about trying to improve the nutritional status of children, and how successful is that? Is it about improving children's participation, their ability to sort of do their class as well? Or is it about actually encouraging children to go to school? So I just wondered about that, and whether there were specific objectives and how well they're met. I mean, from my experience with school foods, which is limited, but it's sort of more limited to Africa, it seems to be only successful in terms of getting children to school. So I'll be interested to find out.
Well, I would say, thank you, Mary, for this interesting question. When I elaborate these 4 meanings of school feeding, at the end I was thinking on Brazil. For instance, if you look at Amazonian region, you cannot disconnect the food policy with sustainable development policies, because food in Amazonia is fish, is food from tropical forest. So there is still an issue how I can use this food from the biodiversity to give the children. If you go to the Northeast, the food is still an issue to overcome poverty. If you go to my region in South, our main issues are related to how to make possible that the municipality can really buy the food from the local farmers. So we have an issue of governance, of access to markets. And the new, what we discovered with this recent paper was that we have also a problem related to how food, especially food for the schools, is addressed in the big cities. São Paulo, 15 million people, Rio de Janeiro, 7-8 million people, other big cities, 4-5 million people. Why? Because we discovered that we cannot expect that such a big cities are able to feed themselves from the food that comes from locally. So then is the point that food have to become addressed in an urban issue. So my answer to you is that in the point that we are now in Brazil, we cannot just focus in one perspective. And I think this is the biggest problem, because people that work in Brasilia, in the National Fund, sometimes they have a perspective on using the school feeding program as a policies to food security, as it was with the person that was chairing the National Fund recently. She did a very good job, she did a very good work, but her approach was always using the focus, using the program of the school feeding program to support food sovereignty, food security. But that's not just the point. In some cases, in the case that I told you, is an issue or to build the markets, to organize the markets. In other cases, is to how to really overcome that the food can be accessed by the municipalities. So I think in such a big country, in such diverse, there is not one single answer. And this makes me wonder, that could be also the case for other situations. So we have to be able to make a diagnosis of each case. And this is not what I see in studies elsewhere. If you look at people who took the countries and they took the countries as homogeneous units, it's not work like that. You cannot just copy and paste a policy from one place to another and expect that it works in the same way that it was working. It's not like that.
And that was Mary Atkinson, who's coordinator of the Food Research Collaboration. And could you say your name?
Hello, my name is Deirdre. I work in the Secretariat of the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition, which is quite a mouthful. So we were involved in the school feeding program policy brief that you highlighted during your presentation. First, I wanted to say thanks for an excellent presentation. You clearly articulated how we can have multiple wins through this type of program, but equally it is very complex. So adding on to that, I have a multiple question, and I want to start right at the start, right at our producers. And I'm curious to know, how did you engage farmers to engage with this program to produce the diverse range of foods that you highlighted in one of your slides? How did you build up capacity in that area in terms of access to resources? And also, in terms of the school, I think what we didn't say on one of your slides is education. And how did you promote long-term behavior change in the schools? Because children learn by doing. Did it coincide with school gardens? How did you get the parents involved? Because another aspect of your presentation was about building up demand and at the grassroots level. So how do you develop those practices and get those, I suppose, those voices heard? So
good. Thank you for your multiple questions. Yeah, I will just choose. Yes, I will just choose maybe one focus to how farmers were engaged. Very few are engaged individually. Most of farmers are engaged in the policies as group of farmers, as small cooperative or small associations. You know, the municipalities, they launch a tender, and the tender is mostly trying to fit with the kind of production that is available in the locality, in the municipality, and then they ask to farmers to come in to present their offers, and then they select them. It's a huge problem with meat and other products that need food surveillance, when you have to have veterinarians inspection. Huge problem. Why? Because who will pay for that service that if farmers can sell the meat or sell the product directly for other retailers, for other middlemen? It's very difficult. So, and the other part of your question, I would say, the big issue is, and the school feeding program is really working in municipalities where the rural extension service and the trade unions, they really take over of the program. They said, this is a program that we fight for, so we will go to the local council. And there are a lot of people that working for the local extension, and even though, for instance, if you look where are the municipalities where the program is not running well, also are the municipalities where the rural extension service is weak. So then you can see that the state have to be there in certain extent in order that policies could work. So, but it will not work just with the state. It's not just saying, oh, we have to hire it, contract someone, to play rural extensions, then the program will run. It's not just like that. So this is my answer, to be short, as Corina asked.
Tim, are you next?
Shouldn't give me the microphone. As Sergio and I rival as long answers and long questions. I'm Tim Lang from here. Well, me too. Thank you very much. I actually really enjoyed that. The third document I ever wrote in food policy was about trying to explore the history of British food, school food program, and it's extraordinarily rich in all countries, and I loved it. I loved your talk, so thank you. And as I was listening to you, this is a comment before the question. I will be brief, I hope. I listened to you and I thought, well, your argument that there are different phases and different arguments in those phases, I like that as a social scientist, but are you saying those are the dominant arguments, but there were others, in which case what were the other arguments? So that's a kind of a comment, but my questions are actually three, but you can deal with them as one. I'm interested in who are the people for the school food program, who's against it? Has the opposition built up to it? And in the different areas of Brazil that you've ended up with, which is where I got really interested, because I think that's the same in Britain, and historically has always been the case. It was strong in the north of England and in London, but weaker elsewhere. Who are the tensions in the movements for it and the movements against it? Mm-hmm. And secondly, what you got at, and you can deal with this all as one, what are the tensions between the central state and the municipalities? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because what you've shown is there are tensions and reasons for those tensions. Is that something you look at? Could you just comment on it?
Yeah. Very quickly, where are the main tensions between the national state and the municipalities? About the amount of money per child for
so is
schools.
It about money?
Yeah, all the municipalities always complain, well, the amount is too low. We have to, at the end, complement. We have to put money from the municipality to make possible that the program run well. Because
but you didn't say in your talk anyway. I mean, I thought that's what would be your answer. But in that case, isn't the politics in your three phases? You need to have in your third phase that this is a maturity of Brazilian democracy. It's becoming a battle of budgets, just like everywhere else.
Yeah, it is, because municipalities, they are responsible to feed the children in the school. But at the end, they don't want, they want to, by law, they have to provide the cookers, the canteens, and the nutritionist, and all the infrastructure. They don't put money, actually. The money comes from the regional states and from the national state. What happens when the money is not enough, or the payment per child goes down because there is a change, or they want to, for instance, there are some municipalities, because of the pressures of the parents or of the local council, they make pressure to buy organic food. In my state, there are some municipalities that are trying to go to organics. Organics are more expensive. So then they start to say, well, we have to increase the amount of money per child that the national government is paying.
So there's no local money?
No,
it's all
local
national.
money? No. In cash, no.
I think that is really dangerous, because the British and all over the world, where there have been attacks on school feeding programs, it's when the attacks come at the national level about taxation and the role of the state.
The program runs like that. The schools have to record how much pupils you have in class, and you get paid by every head that you have in class. You know, that money comes from the national program to the municipality, and the municipality get that money per child. And what the municipality puts in terms of cookers, in terms of the infrastructure that make the program run, is up to the municipalities. What is the main tension? The main tension is about that money.
I see real problems in the politics that they're ahead. The tension but in the name of the locality. This is really tricky politics.
Now,
It is.
I don't want to make sure that other people
Yeah.
have got an opportunity. There was another question that I saw,
Yeah.
but maybe she left. Okay.
Hi, my name is Simone Bosch. I'm from the World Cancer Research Fund International. I was wondering, you didn't touch a lot on the health issue apart from undernutrition and food security, and I was wondering if the school food programs are in any way integrated with Brazil's new dietary guidelines, which really try to focus more on traditional foods and to move away from ultra-processed foods, or if there's any integration of PAHO's new nutrition profile, so kind of focusing on the healthfulness of food and not just whether it's sustainable.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for the question. Very shortly, here it's a key role that is run by the cookers and especially the nutritionists. Every municipality have to have at least one nutritionist for a municipality that prepare the menu for the week, for the month, and for the year, for the school year. So it's up to her to decide what will be consumed in the schools. And these people, these nutritionists, most of them are not committed with these new food guidelines because most of them are trained in universities. I will not say in conventional universities that are training people for the nutrition to take care of other fields. And there is a discussion, especially from people from the food security, that are saying that we need to train new generation of nutritionists to address a new perspective on food. Because most universities, especially the private universities that are training nutritionists, they are training them for the industries. And they never had any class about sociology of food or about food policy anyway. So that's the point. So I will not, in most of municipalities, this is still an open question. Even we had the best guidelines, well, no code everywhere. On the ground, it's not arrived yet. You know, it's a little bit more complicated like that. And this is a tension also between, you know, the guidelines of the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. You know, in terms to how to make this possible. It depends a lot. The studies that I supervise students, PhD, and we had make research on that point. If you look in a municipality where the program really works good, it's really interesting, there is a lot of personal commitment. Commitment from the rural extension, from the side of production, that are organizing farmers to animate them, to stimulate them, to foster them, to deliver products, to develop a set of different season products, because you cannot deliver just potatoes, you have to deliver all products. You have to train the cookers in the school in order to recognize that if the potatoes come a little bit dirty, they are not bad. It's just part of how the products there are. You have to train the nutritionists. A lot of effort have to be spent on that, but there is still a lot of problems in that sense. So that would, that is the state of the art.
Kemi Atijosan from Eagle Solution Services. I just want to ask about the tension between the nutritionists and the schools. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, if the nutritionist is making a menu for a whole region, there is no way that that menu can satisfy all the communities. How does the tension get resolved?
I supervise a master thesis in Rio Grande do Sul. We had looking at different regions and tried, because one of the principles of food security is that assess affordability and the relation between the food and the food culture. We were looking at different regions. What were the menus in every municipalities for the school feeding program, if they are fitting with the regional or territorial food culture. So what we came up with there is enough food, there is availability. We look at the agriculture census, we use that data, and we look at the menus that were prepared. Because every school, every municipality also have to send the menus per week and per month to the regional state in order to get recorded, in order to get assessed by. And they are looking at the nutrition and the nutrition content of every food. I would say, we had done this study. We can say that there is availability of the food in terms of the relation of the food culture, but it's at the end up to the nutritionist to prepare a menu that fits with this culture. So because of this, what I discovered, what I came up with that is that we have to really, really work with these people, with these key people they have in their hands the power of the decision to buy food from the farmers or to buy food from the supermarkets. That's the point. And even another point of tensions, because the point is about the tensions, is about we had actually two laws. We had the law of the 30%, that is a kind of law that tried to contemplate all this discourse, this narrative of food security, food sovereignty. This is a national law, this is a public law, but we also have the law 8066. What is this law? This is the public procurement law. And some mayors, Tim, and you too, also make using the same sentence as Obama said before yesterday. To do nothing is also to give an answer. Some municipalities and some nutritionists say just, well, here we don't have food from family farms, or the food that is not good quality. And then they are not forced to buy the food if they decide, if they report that food is not that good that they want. So at the end is a decision that is in the hand of technical people. And no one can complain or can discuss, and this is a big issue, and the nutritionists are really the key person in this policy. Because of this, the National Fund, they invest a lot in training, in give courses and everything in order to make these people change their minds. For instance, if there is, by law in Brazil, you cannot buy meat, red meat, or beef, let's say, beef, if there is no inspection. But there are municipalities that are buying because they are using the inspection from a third part, and then they buy the meat for the school. But this is a kind of, an extra effort from the nutritionist that is really convinced, that is really willing to do that. So these case studies we had report. I just finished a project on how much organics have been buy from the farmers to the school, and just a few. There is demand, and there are products, but what is really a barrier are the laws or the inspection regulations that are really tough in order to buy cheese from raw milk, or to buy different greeneries, or especially meat and poultry, chicken meat or things like that to serve in the schools. So these issues are become very, very tough in order to go to achieve a next step for the policy in Brazil.
So you had a question, Fernanda?
Hi, I'm Fernanda. I'm also working for the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition. I'm from Brazil. I was working for the school feeding program when I was living there. So I would like, because you were talking about the evolving approach for the school feeding program, and you mentioned that we are starting to rethinking school feeding. So I would like to ask you, what are the main actions that you think it should be taken to guarantee this process, like to link access to food, health, and sustainability within our program?
Well, some of them are just what I'm talking about here. You know, I think some countries, for instance, what I learned when I make the assessment of the Ecuador country, because they come to me because they know that I work on family farming, I know the family farms, I know the laws, and what the government invite me to implement the 30% in Ecuador. But I came up, after 6 months of assessing the policies, I came up that it's impossible to go from a really conventional program, just jump in immediately to another policy. The process of changing food policies, and especially school feeding program, is a slow process and is an ongoing, steadily process. What Brazil did was not immediately, and I will not say that we did well in every field. So what I would recommend, and then we have to come in the debate as you work for this international organization, and especially the World Food Program that is running programs in different countries, we have to be very keen and look the different cases and if there are availability. For instance, in Ecuador, they have no rural extension service. They have no data about food availability in different regions. So if you don't have that information, in Brazil we have this information. We have, for instance, when my suggestion, my policy recommendation, main policy recommendation, just to give you an information, was to shift from a centralized program. They have a very centralized program. Ecuador, the Ministry of Education have the money from the budget. They buy the food from private companies, and they have the logistics centers, and the logistics centers by truck deliver the bars and the stuff to prepare the food to every school. And there, the fathers, the parents, they have to prepare the food by themselves because there are no canteens, mostly so. So that's the system. But I suggest them, well, try to decentralize the program. If you have a centralized program in Quito, you can never buy products from the tropical forest Amazonia and from the coast and try to put them together. Try to decentralize and try to call for the regional governments to come in. What was the problem? The problem was that Correa, the president, was fighting against the regional governments, and they have never consensus because they have a political fight. So there is a power issue. You cannot implement decentralization if you don't want to talk, if you don't have this kind of willingness. So these are kind of issues that you have to take in account when you are planning policies to become decentralized or centralized. I will not say one model, one system is better than the other. For instance, there is a discussion, if you review the report of the World Food Program, that the better model is the decentralized program. I'm not sure if it is. I think in certain cases, the centralization could be a good solution. So in that sense, I cannot tell you any final answer. Right? There are no blueprints. There are no ready cakes to sell in the market to say here can work like this and the other way. So that is my up-to-date learning about studying these policies.
Surely that means that we need to conclude that the thinking about school food programs through the UN, through the World Health Organization, through the World Food Program and things, that has tended to have a one perspective approach. It's tended to be about malnutrition and public health.
That's the point.
That actually this is not necessarily appropriate for the 21st century.
Not necessarily.
Because if you see just in your country, let alone in ours, where we started school food in 1906, Okay, so we've been doing it for 110 years. Over that time, the reasons have changed, the arguments, the rationale. We're ending up now with interesting connections. School food has been good for farming. It's actually where it started in 1944. If you read the British Education Act of 1944, the debate in Parliament in the Second World War, the main reason that got it approved in the Second World War was that it was a market for farmers. If you said that today, it would be a failure. You have to have, there's a range, I think us as social scientists, as policy analysts, we can say there's a range of arguments and a range of experience for school food, but there's no one model. I think you're absolutely right. And we must be more flexible in our thinking in global policy recommendations.
For instance, I'm wondering, I think this will be one of my 2 next steps will be look at more the organics. What are the shortcomings, what are the barriers, the hindrances to buy organics? Because there is a premium price for organics. And this could be fit with the perspective on to develop local sustainable development, to connect food with sustainable development, and the nexus, you know, everything that is fine with the ongoing discourse on the development goals. Okay. But second, then the second agenda is about small-scale municipalities versus big municipalities. I think, and we, in our group, we had discussion, we are convinced that we have to start to address and to try to do our best and to viabilize the school feeding program in big cities. Big cities should be prioritized. In small cities, less than 5,000 inhabitants or less than 10,000, I think we have to carefully think about that. We have to carefully think about, because one farmer, just one farmer, can produce enough to feed all the schools. I will not say you should not do that. Okay, you can do that, but the transaction cost that is behind of that is huge, and in some cases you have to think in other ways. But in big municipalities like São Paulo, I'm absolutely no doubt about that you have a huge market. Then the issue of market comes on the table, and then you really can talk about markets. And we cannot lose discussions. School feeding programs are a promising market for small-scale farmers. But the point is that is not true. This is not a general statement. You cannot make a generalization that will be good for all. You know, it's like a little bit years ago, very, very few years ago, I started rural tourism. And there was a kind of myth that every farmer now can have can prepare the farm to get tourists. It's not like that. Even for small-scale farmers, also is true to try to discuss. Every small-scale farmer, every family farm can now participate in the tendering in the school feeding program. It's not true. Unfortunately, it's not like that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Good.
I think this last discussion we've just had is just a sign that what we need is diversity. Not just at point of production, but diversity in different types of markets. And without that diversity, that's the problem. This idea that we have to have one solution for everybody goes against the kind of the diversity. But I have to say that it was my experience when I was listening to you, that my experience of being in Brazil was the learnings that I took away from that was very much about this reflection and learning that I think Brazil has done very well, that it's been this gradual building up and reflecting what isn't working, then changing and figuring out and moving forward. And I think that's very inspirational. Mm-hmm. And it always makes me think that you can have a food revolution that takes a very, very long time. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it doesn't have to be overnight.